welcome back. Welcome back to this Money Monday edition of Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm John Tobacco, coming to you as we do every day from the Newsmax headquarters, high atop Midtown Manhattan, noon to 2 Eastern. And, of course, we're in the Question Tequila Studios. Downtown, quarter past the top of the hour, the New York Stock Exchange is giving up some red numbers here, down about 160, just holding above that 26,000. A little dip below 26 could be dangerous. And Bitcoin is down about 150 bucks, but well above 11,000. That's a good support level for it. On Money Monday, we don't only talk to you about the Dow and the Bitcoin and everything else, but we bring on the money guests. And joining us again today on Liquid Lunch, it's one of our money men himself. It's Jeff Webb, and Jeff was the founder of Varsity Brands. It's all that great cheerleading stuff you see and all these great competitions and camps. And he's also the founder of the new American Populist. Jeff, thanks for joining us. And of course, Frank's always there as my training wheels. When I start to go off course, he brings me back to truth, justice, and the American way.
I've seen it in person.
So, Jeff, you've been a tremendously successful entrepreneur. You started Varsity Brands from basically nothing. You were a cheerleader. You started doing some camps. It grew, it grew, it grew. You employed thousands and thousands of students over the years. You understand capitalism, American entrepreneurism as good as anyone. And now, you know, there's these 31 seats that were taken over by Democrats in counties, in congressional districts that Trump won in the presidential.
16.
In 2016.
That's
and
right.
now the new American Populist wants to take grassroots efforts to go get those 31 seats back for the president.
Well, the important thing for us is that those seats are occupied by representatives, whether Democrats or Republicans, who support the middle class and the middle class agenda. And as you and I have discussed before, the middle class has been under attack for 30 years anyway, and we're at a point now where 40% of American workers live paycheck to paycheck, and things have to change. It's started to change, no matter which party you're with. You have to admit that under President Trump, we've seen some positive movement. The tax cut, deregulation, the economy that's growing, unemployment down. So these things are helping, but there's a lot to be done. And, you know, we're committed. Again, the subtitle of our organization is a movement to revitalize America's middle class. Well, to do that, you have to have congressmen in place that support the middle class agenda. So that's what we're looking for, and that's where we're going to be involved.
Jeff, it's so interesting to me. I consider myself a populist, but that's a tough phrase to use a lot of the time because it gets used so often as a pejorative. When we talk about left-wing populists, people picture folks like Che Guevara or the Syriza Party in Greece, or maybe in America, folks like Bernie Sanders. Or when we talk about conservative or right-wing populists, they so often try to make that an argument about racism and compare it to reactionary folks that are running neo-Nazi parties in Europe. Why did you choose New American Populist as the name of your organization, and what does populism mean to you?
Well, you know, I think the kind of the modern populist movement, which is really more economic. Now, you're right, it's on both sides. I mean, Elizabeth Warren is saying she's a populist, but she's on the left. And then you've got the populism that people attribute to President Trump, which is more conservative. And for us, by adding the New American Populist, the idea is to differentiate from some of the stereotypes you've been talking about.
So I am a Trump fan, and I am a Trumpian. I'm not a Republican. I don't consider myself a conservative, but I love where Trump is on trade. I love where he is on immigration. I love where he is on no more endless Middle Eastern wars. I love where he is on putting America first. But my big concern with the GOP and the Republican Party has been that they're trying to use Trump's message and Trump's appeal to people, to middle-class voters, quite frankly, to get establishment Republicans that have caused the need for Donald Trump elected in the first place. So how do we know that by electing Republicans, we're electing Trumpian Republicans rather than a Mitt Romney or a Paul Ryan-style Republican?
100% accurate what you're saying, Frank. And for us, it's like we are not going to be in a position to support candidates that are classical conservatives who don't support the middle-class agenda as presented by President Trump. So you're exactly right. This is not a strictly Republican organization. It's not. In fact, we hope it's bipartisan. But people that, when you look at some of the classical moderate Democrats, what President Trump has been doing is pretty much aligned with that.
That's for sure.
He was a Democrat most of his life, and there's a lot of. Frankie and I live in Staten Island, New York, in Richmond County. It's one of the most Trumpian districts in the entire country. I think he won the Republican primary with about 85% of the vote. He won the presidential with about 60% of the vote. And there's almost a 2-to-1 Democrat to Republican ratio in that county. But you have these real blue dog Democrats, these, Kennedy, Reagan type Democrats, and they're kind of looking at it like, this isn't the Democratic Party I signed up for. And we talk on Liquid Lunch a lot about, Frankie and I have kind of socially liberal views and fiscally conservative views. We call our audience the purple people because there's some reds and some blues.
Yeah, sure.
Is the New American Populist, middle class people are usually common sense. They're purple.
I think that's right. I think that's exactly right. And I think the middle class now is faced with such significant problems that party affiliation doesn't really matter to them. They're voting for what can give me and my family more opportunity, more hope, more of an opportunity to succeed and to contribute to society in a positive way. So I think that's what they're focused on.
Jeff, there's been so much focus, and we've covered it at length on this program, about the tariffs on China and the so-called trade war. How do you see things going in terms of that? And should we be as concerned as a lot of media critics and a lot of the president's critics say we should be?
Well, look, there's no doubt that there's some risk here, especially in the short term. But when you look at what has happened in the long term, where we've had these terrible trade agreements, where they benefited our competitors at the expense of American workers and American companies, the question should not be, is this going to hurt us short term? It's going to be, if not this, what? To me, what President Trump has done, and yes, nobody wants the tariffs. I think in an ideal world, we would all want free and reciprocal trade. That's what we would like to see. That's not what we have now. And I think what President Trump is trying to do, contrary to what many in the media are saying, he's just trying to level the playing field.
Yeah.
And if he does that, American workers and companies can compete.
Yeah, and Frankie talked about it last week too. They have like no wages. They're getting paid $6 a month. They don't abide by any of these polluting accords.
They can't go complain to their union rep if they're being mistreated. That's for sure.
We'll never hear from them again.
So
That's right.
as capitalists and free traders, of course, we would like to see a global free market. But when you have people dumping goods and then polluting and then underpaying people, Trump is just putting his foot down and saying, hey, it is populism. It's like, hey, be fair with us. That's a popular thought. And, I think I'd rather pay a couple bucks more and buy something from an American-made factory, and it wouldn't bother me in the least bit than to let China keep pounding our head in.
Keep doing it. And even beyond that, John, again, you've got things like the theft of intellectual property, which hurts all of us in the long run. It's difficult for companies to do business in China. In many cases, they don't want us there. And then the other thing is buying companies and taking our technology that frankly is not only important industrially, but probably from a national defense standpoint.
That's right. So, before we get out of this segment, we got about a minute left. My sister-in-law is the coach of the St. Joseph Hill Koalas, national champs 3 years ago at
How
your
could I forget?
competition in Disney. My daughter Ava, my daughter Tori was on that team. My daughter Ava is a senior this year, and you did say that you were going to try to appear at their camp the last time you were on.
You just put me on the spot, right?
I sure am.
I'm in.
I sure am.
Because they're putting him on the spot.
I can't tell you the text I'm getting.
If I'm here, I will try to make it. You have my commitment.
All right. Well, the Koalas are looking forward to seeing you. They love everything you've done for cheer and the things you've done for American students, college students, and everything else by employing them are all part of the brain and mindset that brings us the New American Populist. And if anybody can build it from the ground up, it's you.
Thank you.
You stay right there. Don't go anywhere. We're going to mix it up right after this.